doing another live with Allie. I'm going to add her in. Allie Newell with Balanced Behavior Consulting. This is the live. And if you're unable to participate in the live today, that's okay. We'll have a recording posted on both of our pages and then also on YouTube. Yay, Allie's here.
Hello. Oh, is it
you're sideways.
making it sideways? Hold on. I forgot this was going to be an issue. Actually, you know what? Hold on. Let me hop back up. Let me go on my phone.
Right. Just coming back. I'm going to grab my coffee. I'm going to move it over here. I had to move my phone today because the sunlight just happens to be hitting at an angle that if I did it normally at my desk, it would look silly. And we like good lighting here. Allie is joining us soon. She had to hop off from her iPad and is now hopping on with her phone. There she is.
Hey. Couldn't get on my phone. I'm on my iPad, so that's fine.
Okay.
Is my mom here? Hi, Mom.
Oh, hi, Allie's mom.
Hi, Mom. Good morning. You can type and say hi.
That's so fun.
She'll be our main participant for today.
I like that. That's fine. It'll be a nice, helpful. Hi.
Good job, Mom. Thanks.
Oh, that's sweet.
Well, Mom, you get to meet my friend Cierra now.
Hi. Hi, Allie's mom. Hi, Anna.
Oh, nice. You said it correctly. She usually has to correct people from Anna.
Anastasia. Anya. For those of you 90s kids who understand that Anastasia is a honorary Disney princess.
You know what? I don't know if my mom remembers this, but Anastasia was the one Disney movie that I was actually really afraid to watch. It freaked me out. I don't know why.
Really?
The little bat character really. I didn't like the whole kidnapping concept. It really.
Oh, and what was his name? Rasputin.
Yes, yeah, it was creepy.
Rasputin. It was so creepy, yeah. And the worms and the underground. Yeah.
Those are. I don't know how those were kids' movies.
I don't know.
Anyway.
Okay, let's get started. Welcome everybody. This is Inner Child Healing with myself, Cierra Walling. I am the founder and owner of New Beginnings Behavior Services, where I do parent coaching, behavior consultation, and social skills tutoring for kids. I currently live in Las Vegas, Nevada, but I'm actually originally from Phoenix, Arizona, where Allie is.
Woohoo! And hello, I am Allie Newell. I am the owner of Balanced Behavior Consulting, and I primarily do behavior analytic and ACT work with teens, adolescents, and parents, as well as some young adults. And I live in, Scottsdale, Arizona now.
Right.
Yes.
Before we get started, we wanted to do kind of a mini disclaimer for those of you who might also be in the field, who might also be ABA practitioners or BCBAs, things of the sort. Just so everyone knows that when we talk today, these are our own thoughts and may not align directly with the BACB. And some of the things that we're going to be talking about are going to be the positive after effects or the positive outcomes that we've experienced. Mm-hmm. We're not trying to actively seek out our clients to provide self-treat ourselves. That's not what this is. That's not what this is for.
It's more of a reflection.
I think more of a reflection. Yeah.
In conversations I know that you and I have had, we've just both noted how much we've identified with our clients and with our clients' experiences in our own childhood. And I think that it's just a cool conversation to have around how the work that we do now, again, impacts us outside of our sessions with our kids, and also gives us a unique perspective to support our clients too.
Yeah, and we did the whole concept of this live was birthed out of a strategy meeting we had about the last live, and there was a quote you said, and I posted the quote about how the work you're doing now is like a direct reflection to healing your own inner child. And, you know, we're providing children what we wanted as kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know if my mom is still in here, but this is something that like my mom and I have actually talked about a lot, and I think it's something that like I have been very thankful for, that the work that they did put in like when I was a kid, you know, like the effort that they went through to figure out how to best support me. Like I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for them. And I also think it's just like I have no like bad feelings towards my parents. The bad feelings that I have is that like the field hadn't advanced as far at that time, or that the supports weren't like as widely like available or talked about. And I think that's what both you and I are like trying to do now in our practices.
We see needs and we're trying to fill the needs
Every day.
every day. We like to start out, before we get into the plan for the day, is we're going to share some of our values, and we're going to funnel into some, you know, personal stories that we're going to share. We're going to have some vulnerability. You guys are here to enjoy us along the ride of our vulnerability journeys for today. Allie's going to go first with sharing her values.
Okay. Oh, sorry, my chair's got weird. That's better. Look, I'm in the frame.
Oh, that's so much better.
Okay, so values wise, like I think my main values really surround like freedom and independence. I think on like a large scale, and like it kind of like trickles down from there. But you know, one of the reasons why I'm originally from Massachusetts, one of the reasons why I moved to Arizona was because I felt like, although I had like my friends I had known for a really long time and my family was there, like I felt like on an everyday like lifestyle level, my values were not aligning with what I wanted. So I love access to the outdoors. I love hiking. I never camped very much as a child, but now I'm obsessed with camping, and like camping is like
You went like 2 weeks ago, right? Yeah.
And I just like and I'm not camping this upcoming weekend, but like
you're out in the wilderness. Yeah. You're adventuring in the outdoors.
Cabin, and we're going hiking, and we're like, I was realizing I was packing last night for the trip, and how easy it was to pack, because I'm like, oh, I just get to pack like my hiking and outdoor clothes. Like there's no mess, no fuss,
nothing, no laptop.
No laptop, no like what outfit do I wear, what shoes will go with this outfit. It's just like I get to go spend time in nature, and all I need to care about is keeping my body warm, because it's gonna be cold.
It's gonna be cold, gonna be wet, gonna be cold.
It's gonna be wet, although the weather looks like it's gonna be sunny for me, so maybe I'll bring some of the Phoenix sunshine to Seattle. But yeah, I really value time in nature. I value quality time. I really value introspection, and like getting to know myself and the people that I care about like on a very deep level. That's something that I feel like I can't go without. Like I need that type of connection in my life. I really value my dog, who's staring at me right now, and time with him. And I think I value a lot are like creativity and like freedom of expression, for sure.
Yeah.
You?
Well, you guys have probably already heard me say this, but I value vulnerability. I think it's a skill. You know, I think people misunderstand what vulnerability actually means. And I think when people think vulnerability, they think like, oh, you have to share your deepest, darkest secrets with somebody. And that's not necessarily true. Vulnerability is essentially when you're doing new things. If it's new to you, that's vulnerability. So I value healthy vulnerability. And I remember, this is kind of leading a little bit into my own personal story, but I remember doing some work as a teenager on my values, actually. And what they did was they would say a value, or they'd say like a characteristic that you would want in a relationship with somebody, friendship, romantic, didn't really matter, with a relationship with yourself. And then you had to order them. There was 8 spots, and you had to order them from like the most important to the least important. And every so often I redo this activity with myself, or I'll do this with my partner. And oh, my notes are going away. Sorry, hold on.
You value notes.
I value notes. I value visuals, you guys. I value visuals. I value notes. I value having an opportunity to take notes. If I can't do it on my laptop, like I have to write it down. If I don't write it down, I will forget and I will not follow through. Like I have to write it down. I value that. But I value one of the things in the activity that I always would put at the very top. It's this idea of consistency. I value consistency. I value the sense of security that consistency provides. I value the safety that I am provided through consistency. So I know you're going to show up when I need you.
Yeah.
I know that you're going to follow through with the things that I ask. And sometimes that could be as simple as like, hey, are we meeting for dinner on Sunday? And you show up, and there isn't this like frequent, you know, I get it, life happens, some things need to be canceled. But if you show up and you're communicative, and like that was one of my biggest values. And it still is, it's still really important to me. And another thing I really value is just being open-minded and willingness to try new things. That kind of goes into vulnerability too. Trying new foods, trying new events, visiting a new place, just kind of that ability to step a little bit out of your comfort zone and enjoy life. I value enjoying life. Positive intent. I value positive intent. Assigning a positive intent.
I feel like you value too, and I think this is something that like you and I connect on a lot, is like we value like seeing like the opportunities in everything, right? Like we've talked a lot about like how in like business ownership, like there's a lot of like really like challenging like FFTs, like
FFTs, all of the FFTs.
And like I think that's something that both of us, again, I'll speak for myself, but like I know that I would rather live my life like trying new stuff and making mistakes and learning from them and like seeing the beauty in all of that than like just sticking with the status quo and never straying away from like what's comfortable in like the service of like avoiding discomfort, you know?
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. I love the way you said that, in service of avoiding discomfort. No, 100%. And I think we also we've talked about this before privately, but this idea that, and this particularly happened with me, you know, you're trying to find your place. You know, if you're a BCBA on here and you have tried to find your place, try to find your team, the place that you belong, that's going to fit your niche, that's going to align with your values, and you're still trying to find that place. I made my own place. I couldn't find a place, so I made my own place. Allie did the same exact thing. She made her own place. Are you still there? I saw it glitch a little bit. Oh no, Allie might be having technical difficulties. Oh, she's back. Yay, easy fix.
Screen time limitation on Instagram.
Oh. I never turned those settings on because I just would hate the notifications if they popped up. Especially since, like, as you know, we have our Instagram accounts for our businesses. So yeah, we're gonna be on them networking and things. So you listed all your values, Allie. How does that, how does that align with the work that you're doing now?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that, like, again, the main thing that I listed was like valuing freedom. And when I was with like valuing freedom, creativity, like working through discomfort, trying things on my own, like I felt like the world of behavior analysis, like the way that like the mainstream is right now, is very like limited.
Mm-hmm.
Like I felt like there was only like one path for me to go down, and it was either like it, or I guess there was two paths at the time that I saw. Like it was either continue working with like these ABA companies that I felt like my values just like weren't aligning with, again in like a way of practicing sense and
Mm-hmm.
like in a business model sense as well, and also like in how I like to do ABA. Like as much as I appreciate the RBTs that I've had in the past and I've loved the work I've done with them, like I want to do the direct work with kids. I want to be doing the direct interventions, and like I am qualified to be doing that. Like we didn't go to school for all this time, in my opinion. Again, I love staff, but like I didn't go to school all that time to like teach somebody else how to do it. I would have been a teacher if I did that. I wanted to be the therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was either going to just keep going and putting up with the status quo, or I was going to leave. And I also didn't want to leave. So I'm sure like you, I was just like, well, I have to find a way to do this in between. And I luckily have really great mentors in my life. I've talked here a few, well, one time before about Kelsey, who is with Ascend Behavioral. She created her own sleep ABA consulting business, and I was like, well, if she can do it, and then I looked on Instagram and I saw other people doing it, and I'm like, well, if they can do it, like I can do it. And I just like, again, I really value my freedom. I really value like my creativity. I value trying new things, and I'm like, if these are all things that I want to do, like I'm just gonna have to go after it. Like I'm just gonna have to do it.
Yeah. So
So yeah.
fast forward, you started the business, you're working, you're leaning into your values now. When did you recognize when, when did you recognize that like the work that you were doing was like the after effects and the positive outcomes of doing that was addressing your own childhood?
Yeah. I think like it's funny because I had this like realization in a grad school class that like
Oh, so this is way before.
it was, well, like it started before like ABA.
Okay, the seeds were sprinkled.
Yeah, the seeds were definitely sprinkled. Like ABA in general, I think has helped heal some of like, or helped me like understand
Mm-hmm.
some of like my childhood and like the things that I went through, and like what like strategies and supports were like trying to be put in place to support me, like with schedules and reinforcement systems and stuff like that. I had this like realization in a grad school class when we were talking about token economies, that I like had one in the 4th grade, because
Oh.
I would like do this thing where in like my memory, I think what I was doing was I was like raising my hand all the time to either ask to go to the bathroom or to make a comment about something in class or to answer a question, and I would just have nothing to say. Like I would raise my hand and I would be like, I forgot. And
You know what? Oh my gosh, I need to make a note because I've been hearing that exact
yeah.
situation happen a lot, and I want to talk
Mhm.
about it with you more
I
later.
actually had a client, like I was talking to a client about this too. Like it was like this need to, I think like some part of me was looking for attention. Some part of me was like looking for an outlet for like the urges that I had, for like the want to participate and the want to be like reinforced and stuff
Mhm.
like that. So like I'd been put on this token economy, but it was not really a token economy. It was more like I don't think you could qualify as a punishment, but it was like you get 3 blocks. You can raise your hand 3 times. Once the blocks are gone, like you don't get
Oh, so it's like
your
a
hand anymore.
limit, kind of like what parents are
Yeah,
doing with like bedtime, like you're allowed to like the hall pass, like the bedroom pass, so they can like leave their
yeah,
bedroom so many times in the night.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The bedroom pass. And yeah, it was like, so I had to really think about what I wanted to say, because if I used one and I had nothing to say, like it was also embarrassing. And then it was also like, well, now you don't get any opportunities to participate anymore. And so I had that realization like really early on, but like that part of it is
Oh, I
sad,
just want to like
right? I know, I
meet
know,
young little Allie and just like give her a hug.
I know.
That makes me
So
sad.
yeah, and you know what's even like sadder about it too is like that year with that teacher, I think I like dissociated a lot that year, I think, like in my, like now that I think back on it, because I don't really remember a lot from that year. Like I remember that. I remember like another girl in my class and an aide in the classroom and stuff like that. But the following year, I remember I had like the best teacher ever. And if my mom is still in here, she'll remember her. Her name was Mrs. Warrener. And we like to this day will talk about how much that like teacher did for me, because I think that teacher like really like saw me for like the little like the child that I was, that just needed like extra love and attention and support and like
Not
guidance.
a token economy that limits the
Yeah,
number of times that you
like
can raise your hand.
yeah, it was like it was very punishing, you know, like I needed guidance. I didn't need like shame, you know? And
Ooh, I'm
I remember there were,
writing that down. I needed
yeah,
guidance, not
yeah,
shame.
yeah. And like that's what it felt like. I was just being like shamed for my like needs that I didn't really understand. And like I remember I was doing really well in that class the next year because I was like getting my needs met. And I remember I was like line leader one day, and I was like everything was going really well, and I was at recess, and I had my fourth grade teacher. She was out at recess, and I was the line leader that day. And I'll never forget, um I was like doing my job, and I was so proud of myself. And I like look at the teacher, and she was like, you know, like you don't have to try to impress me to like try to pretend that you're doing a good job. And I like will never forget, because
Oh,
I was like, I am just actually I'm like doing my job. This isn't for you. Like I'm doing well, and like here you are like making this thing that I felt like I was being like guided to do, like another shameful thing. And like I'll never like forget those experiences, right? Like that was really like hard for me. And now like I think from that lens, I'm able to like see my clients with so much more like compassion and understanding and like empathy for them, that like
yeah.
what their intent, like what the behavior looks like,
Mm-hmm.
is not necessarily what their intent is. And what's
Mm-hmm.
underneath that behavior that may seem like, you know, non-functional or maybe inappropriate or whatever.
Disruptive,
Disruptive,
maladaptive,
yeah,
yeah.
destructive, defiant, like all these words that get thrown around.
Disrespectful. Yeah,
Disrespectful. Yeah, it's just like a kid who has a need that needs to be met, and they don't know how to get it.
that's plain and
And
simple.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's it. And like I think from that lens, it just allows me, one, to have like compassion for like my childhood self, like when that does pop up like outside of therapy or in my own therapy work. Like it gives me like compassion for that portion of myself, rather than like the shame that I felt for like doing things
Mm-hmm.
incorrectly, or like being bad or being wrong or whatever it was. So yeah, I think,
Yay.
yeah.
Um, and so like, and now you're doing ACT. So and so one of the beauties of ACT is like, you can't just do it. You can't just provide it. You have to
Mm-hmm.
do it yourself.
Yeah.
So it's like a 2-for-1. So you're even more like in tune with how to best meet the needs of your clients. Actually reminds me of this story I heard just the other day. I can't remember her name, but she's an autism advocate. She has autism herself, and she also does social skills.
Mm.
She calls it social skills teaching, social skills coaching. And she talks about how it's a lot, she's able to relate to her clients in such a way because she had to learn it in this very similar way that they're going to learn it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just like, it reminds me of you, and like how, you're able to help such like a wonderful need in the neurodivergent community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and it's like, you know, having ADHD, like I think for a long time in my life, I shut out that I had ADHD. I like felt like proud that I like overcame it. And like I don't think I've overcome ADHD. I think I've just like figured out how to live and accept how I live and how I go about things in my world, and like work to separate myself from shame and all that stuff. But like portions of it are also like I got throughout life by like masking and by like being somebody else. And so like in my 20s and in my adulthood, like now I've just had to like kind of unlearn those things. And that's like, that's the portion of like the inner child healing that I like don't want other kids to go through it, if like
You
as
don't
much as,
want them to go through the hard, painful parts.
yeah, or at least like be able, like, again, hard painful parts are just a part of our life, right? Like we're
Yeah.
never gonna not have them, but like how can I support you and your family in shaping those experiences in a way that is a learning opportunity where you get valuable skills out of it, there are steps that you know that you can take, and I can empower you to learn how to do these things because it's important to you, not because other people are making you feel poorly about the way that you exist in the world. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
No, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I know, I think you and I, again, I've always loved talking to you about this because you can relate to like the plight of having a childhood that was like kind of stigmatizing and like kind of
Yeah.
like isolating. And I would love for like people to hear your story too about, you know,
Yeah.
because I know our experiences are similar, but also very different.
Very different. Yeah. So I'm, the way that when Allie and I were talking about like, sharing partial versions of our stories, the way I explained it to her was like, I was a weird child. So, like growing up, like when you're in elementary school, maybe, and like there's always that one kid that was just like a little weird and everyone knew that they were the weird kid.
Mm.
That was me.
Did you have little glasses?
No, I didn't.
Aw.
I had like weird little quirks and like weird little nuances. I didn't have, I had zero social skills.
Mm.
I had like one friend at my old school. And then when I went to my new school, trying to make friends and trying to talk to my classmates
So hard.
it was so hard.
Mm.
I remember like people would approach me at recess. I don't know what they said. To this day I don't remember what they were trying to say to me. And I would just run away. I would run away from them.
Oh.
And some kids would try and chase after me, and it was just like super, I wouldn't say traumatizing, but really impactful negatively in my brain space looking back on it as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was really hard for me to make friendships. And even when I did figure out how to make friendships, they weren't positive friendships.
Mm.
They weren't healthy friendships. They were very toxic. But I didn't know that. I didn't know better. And it reminds me of how when we're doing like behavior analysis work with clients, like if you don't teach the replacement behavior, a more appropriate like replacement behavior to help a client get their needs met, they're going to teach a different one to themselves to try and get the need met. So that's what happened to me. I, unfortunately just struggled socially and emotionally. I was a very anxious child that continued on into adulthood for a long time. And thankfully I accidentally, through one of my toxic friendships, got into this program. It's based in Arizona. It's unfortunately no longer in operation. But if any of you in Arizona watching and you recognize the words Dr. Franny, workshops for youth and families, or I am lovable and capable,
Oh.
I see you and I hear you. I'm also an alumni. I did the program as a participant. I volunteered as a peer leader to like help. I learned so much as a participant, and I wanted other teens and peers and kids younger than me to learn. Oh my gosh, like there's a concrete steps and how to do all of these cool social things that I wanted. I wanted connection. I wanted friends. I wanted to resolve conflict. And they went through all of that, and it was amazing and wonderful. And so I constantly want to praise the work that they do. Unfortunately, like I said, they're no longer in operation. They rebranded as Youth Rising a few years ago. To this day, I still and up until they disbanded, I had been volunteering and working with them. So it's been a journey of 15 years being able to try and pay it forward and pay it back, what I experienced. And so now, and I do that now in the work that I do now. I want to help fill that need that I experienced as a child. I just didn't know what to do or how to do it. I didn't understand any of that stuff. And my parents certainly didn't understand it either, or how to support me or aid me in that skill building. So it's really enjoyable for me to be able to provide that to children, to provide that to teens, to provide that to the parents, because they want to know too. Parents this day and age, they want to know.
Yeah.
They want to know what's going on with their kids. They want to know how to support their kids. They're concerned about their kids not having friends or bullying and like all of those things. So it's really nice being able to do that. And I like still to this day, like I'll see something happen with a client and all of a sudden like it'll trigger a memory.
Yeah.
And I'll like put that away. I'll like put that in my back pocket to like think about later or journal about later. And later in the day when I have time away from work, I'm just like, whoa, I did that too. Or man, like I can imagine how they were feeling in that moment because that happened to me.
Yeah.
Just little things like that. So,
and it's so helpful too, I think, for our clients. Like I know, like when I was going through those issues, and I'm curious if you had the same thing too, like I felt like I was the only one. Like I felt like I was the only one that was like the weird kid, or that was having problems, or that was like,
it was a weird relationship in my brain at the time, being the only one, because it was almost like I'm the only one and no one understands me, but it also was like I'm the only one, like this is cool, like I'm the only one, like yay. And like those, like thinking back on it, like as examples of my life, like there was like in elementary school at the time, there was boys soccer and girls soccer. There was boys soccer and girls soccer. Girls soccer played like in the dirt, like on the kickball field, and boys soccer played on an actual soccer field with grass and pole and like goalposts and things like that. And I remember just like asking the girls, like, why don't we just go? Why can we like trade off like some days like girls soccer does? Like I was trying to negotiate like a schedule for when we could use the grass for girls soccer, and they're like, no, that's just not how we do things. Like girls soccer is here and boys soccer is there. And I was like, well, why don't we just all play together? Like I don't understand. And they're like, nope, it's like this and that. And I was like, this is stupid. I went to go play boys soccer, and I was the only girl that went to go play girls soccer. And it was weird because like I recognized I was the only one doing it, but at the same time, I'm the only one doing it. Like it was like a weird relationship between that. And like there was just other, and that continued on growing up. Like I did varsity cheer and marching band, guys. I did both of those, and I was the only one who I knew did that. So I think it's just, to answer your question shortly, yes.
And it's funny because like I'm like a little jealous that you like had the like I'm the only one, because like I only think I got that like when I was older, like when I was like coming more into my adulthood, that I was like, oh, I like being unique, or like I like doing things differently than other people do things. I like that I perceive the world in a new way, in like a different way. But like
I think looking back on it, it might have been a safety mechanism for the fact that being with, because if I'm the only one, then I don't have to have friends. No one can relate to me. I don't have to share vulnerability. I don't have to do all the hard work that's required in and belonging to a group, because it's hard work. When you belong to a group and you belong to a community, or you belong to your family or your cohort for your work or whatever it is, that's work. But if you're the only one, it's work, but it's not the same level of work. And I think maybe me being excited that I was the only one was kind of what it was like, I don't have to do the hard work that's around having relationships.
Would you describe yourself as an introverted extrovert?
Yes and no. I think about that a lot, actually. I don't really know. I think sometimes I'm extroverted and sometimes I'm super introverted.
It's funny because like I just had this thought that like somebody said to me once, because I'm like really into like horoscopes and like you know, like zodiac.
I want to try and guess what your horoscope is.
Oh, please go. Let's see.
I don't know your birthday. Oh gosh. I'm thinking,
I feel like you're a Cancer.
You know, that's so funny. A lot of people have to say that, but no.
you a Pisces?
No, I'm not a Pisces. Right before that.
Are you
I think it's
an
before or
Aquarius?
after.
Oh,
No, I think it's after Pisces. No, it's
Aries?
after Aries. I'm right after Aries.
Gemini?
Taurus.
No, Taurus.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I know,
I'm
right? People don't think that.
surprised. Well, I guess parts of it make sense,
Parts
knowing you.
of it makes sense. Like if
Parts of it makes sense.
you really sit down with me and you're doing life with me right
Yeah,
next to me, you'll see it.
yeah. Well,
Um,
like Taurus likes some like rigidity and structure and like not rigidity and like I mean
we're
sometimes
stubborn
going about it. Yeah,
and we're
right.
inflexible,
Yeah,
but thankfully, like my flexibility skills have just
yeah,
gone through the roof in the past couple of years. But before that, I was not flexible.
yeah. Well, it's like, wait, do you want to guess mine or should I
Yeah.
say?
I want to say Sagittarius or Capricorn for some reason.
My mom's a Capricorn. My best friend's a Sagittarius, but I am an Aquarius.
Okay.
And it's funny because like Aquarius are supposedly like very like free and they don't care about the opinions of others and they like very much like they like very much just like kind of do whatever they want and they go with the flow and like in the large portions of my life that is true.
Hmm.
But like someone once said to me one time like maybe like you were born in that way and the
Hmm.
world like dampened some of that out of you or like the world like
I think that's true for
those,
children
right?
in general. Like I
Yeah.
think we're born to be a certain way, and then unfortunately, because of like societal programming and expectations and all, the nature versus nurture argument and all that stuff,
Hmm.
kind of like dampens it and like mutes it almost, like muffles. It's like a muffle or like a mute.
And I have this like, I've had this thought of like when parents have kids, like they have all of these ideas about like what they want to give their child and what they want their child to do because of all the things that they didn't get in their childhood, right? So it
Hmm.
might be like, oh, I'm gonna work a lot so I can make a lot of money so you can get vacations and you can have a nice house and you can and I didn't get to play sports, so I'm gonna put you in all the sports, I'm gonna put you in all the
Hmm.
extracurriculars, all the whatever. And then their kids aren't happy, right? And they aren't getting their needs met. And like because what they actually probably want is you to work less so they can have more time with you and that maybe they have like one extracurricular that they actually really love that they got to choose that they go to
Yeah.
or like maybe they don't want to go on this big vacation, maybe they would rather just like be at home with you with quality time, right? And so there ends up being this like disconnect and this like fight between like what does the child actually want and need versus what is the parent's perception, like how is the parents' perception of what they should have and what they want to give and what the goals that they have for their kids based off of what
Yeah.
they want affecting their child. And I think that's one of the big disconnects in like values alignment between kids and parent usually
Hmm.
in the work I see anyway.
Something I think of 2 points. So the first point is because before for those of you who don't know, I was in behavioral health before, going for my marriage and family therapy license, fell into behavior analysis on accident, shifted everything over to that. But all that training and education I received is still viable and helpful. And one of the things that I learned is that a lot of times, and we're programmed to do this, um, our brains just kind of are sometimes mean to us. We're programmed to like visionize and idolize like how we want our family to be. Like new mothers and new fathers will do this. They'll visualize all these things they expect or want for their child. I'm gonna roll them in dance, and I want them to wear these clothes, and like you have all these like hopes and dreams and wishes for your child, and then you kind of go through like a stage of grief when those things don't happen because you played a certain story in your mind for so long, and it's really hard for parents to accept that, especially when let's say they're missing an arm when they're
Yeah.
born, or they lose their legs, or they have diabetes, or they have Down syndrome, or they're neurodivergent and they have ADHD and autism and they're not speaking. So there's a lot of unexpected moments that happen for first time parents, and you kind of have to you can't visionize what their life is going to be like for them anymore. And I think the second point is, you know, I'm pretty sure this is what you're relating into, but it's important for parents to have their own
Mm-hmm.
values. Parents are able to identify their own values, children are able to identify their own values, and then as a household family unit, you are able to identify the values of the household, the values of the family.
Yeah.
And that's probably going to look very different than what a parent value is and what a child's value is.
And yeah, and I think like having like the ability to like notice that like maybe when things are going awry or things aren't going well, that there's a moment for reflection there.
Mm-hmm.
And like to notice whether like what like parents are imposing and pushing and suggesting is actually what the like what is best for the child rather than like what we think is going to be best for the child.
Mm-hmm.
Right, like to be able to take a step away and take more of an objective like point of view on the situation, because again, like when you're a parent, like of course like you want your kid to have certain things and there are certain expectations that you have, but like it's not your child's job to become the person you want them to be. It is your job as the parent to, like,
wait,
help
say
them.
say that again. Say that again.
It is not the job of the child to become who you want them to be. It is the job of the parent to help the child become who they are meant to be and who they want to be.
That
Right?
was that. Yeah, that was. I need to write that down. Oh my goodness.
But no, I mean, again, like I feel like that's such a big point of disconnection. Like, oh, I'm gonna have a little boy and he's gonna play sports and he's gonna like do all the things I never did. And like you get a little boy who like loves art and like wants to like be an artist, and then you're like constantly putting him in sports and in all these activities and he hates it because what he would rather be doing is sitting at home and like making some beautiful creation. And like over years and years, like he starts to reject practice and he cries on the way, and then you eventually come to somebody and be like, he's tantruming all the time. And because underneath that, like he's just being made to do things that he doesn't really want to do, but he's doing them because you ask him to do it. He's doing it because he thinks he's supposed to. Like,
So how would you how would you do this with a parent, or maybe with a child, but how would you help them advocate for their values? Because I don't know, like did little Allie know how to like say, like answer the question like what do you value?
I think that normally I ask kids what do you like, or like what would make a perfect day for you, or like, let's make a list of all the things you like, all the things you don't like, all the things that are okay, like whatever. A lot of it usually is through experience, and then I teach them that means that those are things that they value, and that sometimes like people have different values, right? And sometimes people's values don't necessarily align. Your parents can have different values than you, and whatever. But the thing is too is that like a lot of the times it's more about showing the parent that like their needs are not actually being met by this thing that we are doing that we think is meeting their need. And that's where the resistance and the tantrums and the defiant behavior is coming from. It's a lack of a need being met.
Yes.
That you need to take a step back from your own cognitions and what you believe is going on and see your child for who they really are. Ask these questions and like make an effort to change, make an effort to get like support them with that. Again, within reason. Like if a kid is like, I value never going to school, sorry buddy, like we can't do that. But like we can teach you how to like make maybe school a little bit easier, or so that that when you get done with school you're gonna have like a valued afternoon, or if he's like, I never want to go to school and I hate sports, you don't have to play sports. We can still have you be active, but you don't have to play a sport. You can do something else, right? So I think it's really about like shining the light on what's kind of going on a larger scale and seeing like, are these things really aligning? If it's, and the thing we say a lot is like, if there's a problem and your solution isn't making a change, it's not a solution.
That's insanity.
Yeah.
Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. So that leads me to my next question in a two-part way. So the first part of the question is, how do you help parents recognize the insanity? And then sometimes, like, I don't know if you've ever had this happen, but I've had some parents that when they come to this realization that, like, oh my gosh, like, I'm not living a value-based life and my child isn't either. We don't have any value, like, we don't have any values in our home. And they kind of go through this stage of, like, sadness. And I don't want to say regret, but like they feel like they messed up as a parent, and they're just like, like, I'm ruining my kid's life and I'm messing it up. And they, like, go through this, like, terrible, like, self-hate moment as a parent that they're doing it wrong. I'm really curious, like, how you address that.
Yeah, so, like, I think I'll address your second part first. So, like, I think that, like, normalizing it, like, again, just like we, like, diffuse anything in act, we, like, name it and neutralize it, right? Name it, neutralize, normalize, whatever. And, like, the thing is that, like, this is not commonly taught. Like,
No.
our parents, I don't know, mine were, like, raised off of, like, a very specific, like, moral, like, compass based off of, like, religion mostly. And, like, there are societal expectations, there are, like, things that society and the world and books and TV shows and all this messaging that is around us that is just feeding us with what we should believe is important, right? Like, you should go to college, you should get X, Y, and Z job, you should make X, Y, and Z amount of money, your kids should do this, they should behave this way, right? So, like, what I try to do is normalize it, right? Like, it is not your fault. Like, these are skills that need to be taught, and if it wasn't taught to you as a child, if it wasn't taught to you in your adulthood, like, you're just learning it now. And all we can do is to change what we're doing today and moving forward. And, like, the stuff in the past, like, you can apologize for it if it comes up in conversation. That's always really good. Like, you can acknowledge that, like, you are working on changing to support your family. And I think that's something that is really important for parents to do, is, like, take ownership over that. But it's just like anything, you know, again, trying to, like, diffuse from the, like, what this means about me to like, this is just something that I now am going to change, and this is now something that I'm going to shift into. And, like, again, just normalizing that, like, it's not common information. And like, so I think that's usually what we do, but it is a process. And, like, I also teach families to, like, make space for pain and discomfort, because
It's gonna happen. That's also normal.
Yeah. And now I forgot your first part of the question.
How do you help parents who feel guilty and they go through this, like, I'm a bad parent, and then how do you help a parent, like, recognize, like, that they're not living a values-based life?
Yeah. And, like, you know, a lot of the times, usually what it is like, I think I go from, like, logic sometimes. So I do explain, like, a lot of, like, behavior analytic principles, like, and kind of break them down into that, like, if this thing was actually functioning as a reinforcer, the behavior you want to see increase would be increasing. It's not, so it's not working. Or if this punishment that you're using was actually functioning as a punisher, the behavior wouldn't be here anymore. So, like, again, just kind of, like, neutralizing it, like, that this thing that you were doing was just another thing that was fed to you as something that should work, but it's not. So we're just gonna do assessments to figure out what your actual values are. And, like, I spend time with them and their kids, teaching them how to, like, do the values questionnaires or types of questions to ask and conversations to have in their home to get on the same page, you know? And usually, kind of, it takes time, like, but within the first couple of sessions, I can usually kind of illuminate to them that, like, the values aren't aligning. Like, I just had a client the other day that was telling me that, like, their kid only cares about the tablet. And then when I did a values questionnaire with the child, I had them list out all of their favorite things. Like I had to remind them that the tablet was something that they enjoyed. So like the parents' perception was very much different from what was actually important to the child. And so I think showing that to them sometimes can support that. And then we just, yeah, it's slow steps to get everybody on the same page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, because both of our stories of, you know, little Cierra and little Allie, a lot of the things we shared were things that actually happened at school.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm wondering, like from a values perspective, and this reminds me of like positive behavior support, their curricula, and their research is primarily about schools also implementing a values-based approach to their campuses. But it's hard to wrap my brain around how they can do that from a public school district standpoint, because there's such a push for all of these other things.
Yeah, I mean, again, like have you heard of the Connect curriculum?
No, tell me
So
more.
the Connect curriculum, it is like, I believe it's in all of the schools, and someone fact check me if you think I'm wrong, but I believe it's a mandated in all schools in the UK. But it's based off of the DNAV curriculum, like the way that DNAV is the child application of ACT. So it's just a different way of teaching the ACT-based skills to kids. But like the way that they teach it is teaching the skills and supporting each kid's individual values. But like, I mean, the way that I think about it is like, say you do a values assessment for a classroom, right?
Yeah.
They're kids, so their values aren't going to be like that far away from each other, right? So, you know, there might be a bunch of kids that like art, there might be a bunch of kids that like sports, there might be a bunch of kids that prefer music, whatever. And like the way that you can do that is by like doing different sections. Like, okay, this week we're going to focus on like this art group, this group's like values, and we're going to do this activity to support them. And then the kids that don't really like this, that's where we're going to work on their flexibility, for them to try new things and for them to step out of their comfort zone. We're not forcing them to do it every day. We're not forcing them to believe it's important, but we are exposing them to new opportunities. Same thing for the kids in other groups, you know? Like, I think it's just being intentional about like knowing your kids, knowing the kids in your classroom, and then like teaching in a way that opens the doors for kids to have things that they value and also learn new experiences, while also acknowledging that you don't have to like and enjoy everything.
Yeah.
You don't have to like and enjoy it, but you can learn to tolerate it and try it, because maybe you don't do it for yourself, but maybe you do it because like your best friend in the class is actually more interested in sports and you're more interested in music. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I like the classroom view approach.
Yeah.
I think it's a great, like, educators, teachers, if you watch this, like, she just gave you some really good social emotional learning curriculum, like, for a solid semester.
Yeah,
that you could easily do that.
There's like, again, in the Connect curriculum, it's big on teaching mindfulness, and like you can do that in the classroom, like, but it's not just sitting and meditating. Like, kids aren't going to do that. You can have mindful art, you can have mindful music, you can have mindful recess. Like, there's all these different things. It's just we need to be more intentional about getting away from like mainstream curriculum and also teaching like life skills and coping skills in like a more functional and like meaningful way from a young age.
The way that I describe like social skills tutoring to parents is, I'll say, for them to, when parents are trying to talk to their children about it, is, you know, sometimes kids need a math tutor for math, and sometimes they need a piano tutor for piano. And Miss Cierra is a social skills tutor. And she is going to help teach the skills, and I specifically say that are not taught in schools, unfortunately, in my area.
Yeah. No, I say the same thing too. I'm like, I know at school, I ask kids usually like, how much did you learn about emotions at school? And they're like, well, I know like happy, sad, like blah, blah, blah. Like I can tell you like the pictures of faces. And I'm like, how much more do they talk about I'm like, we don't really talk about emotions at school. I'm like, what do you talk about all day? And they tell me what they talk about, whatever. But then I say, yeah, like, that's why I'm here, because we don't learn a lot about emotions and how to deal with emotions at school. And that's a skill that we need to learn. So that's what I'm here for. And usually they're like, oh,
Oh.
the little, oh, okay, that sounds cool.
I just recently had a kiddo. He's in charge of making his own schedule now,
Uh-huh.
and so he really likes it, as they always do. But yeah, like they have these like, and like when I explain, because then they ask me like, well, why couldn't I make this schedule before? And like we explain it and we talk about it, and they're like, they do the same thing. They're like, oh, and they have like that wonderful like little epiphany moment.
Yeah, which is so nice. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Again, I wanted to ask you before we like wrap up here too, like, are there, for like, I think, and like parents or teachers, like, or other practitioners watching, like, do you have any like thoughts on what's like one thing that you think is like so important for kids and for adults to know about growing up, so that like,
Mm.
yeah, maybe some of the things that happened for you when you
Oh
were a
my
kid.
goodness, that is
I
a
know,
heavy
a heavy
question,
question.
girl.
Hey, you said you wanted to be vulnerable.
One thing
Yeah,
though.
you can talk
Hold on,
a little
rephrase the
bit.
question. I want to really,
So
really.
I think the question is like, what's a piece of advice you would give to adults to support them in like not letting like the weird kid or the kid that's like doing differently like not fall through the cracks, like so they don't have so much to learn when they get
Oh
old.
man, let's see. I, oh, from a personal experience
Mm-hmm.
perspective, it was my friend that got me into the camp, and my parents actually didn't want me to go. I had to
Mm-hmm.
convince them to let me go. So it was like that was the first time that I really advocated for myself in that way. So advice to give to parents, you know, really, to make sure the weird kids don't fall into the cracks. Just really, oh man, it's so hard. I can think of like so many things. Like
A couple.
the first thing that comes to mind really is just like, understanding like your role as a parent is like you are their safe space, you are their connection space, you are their model for everything and anything that they're going to do when they become an adult. And so really just like modeling your values, owning who you are, understand like making space to understand and learn together as a family on how to improve. I always like to say evolve.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my kiddos like Pokemon, so that's just where that comes from.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, you know, I think some parents actually recognize that their kid might be the weird kid,
Mm-hmm.
and they feel for whatever reason embarrassed about it.
Yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
there's this unfortunate, because we're taught to be embarrassed that we're different or that we're weird,
Mm-hmm.
growing up in our current society.
Mm-hmm.
And so just recognizing that if your child is the weird kid, like that might be triggering something in you. And it might not necessarily be about your child. It might be triggering something in you. Maybe you had a really close friend growing up that was the weird
Yep.
kid. And now you feel this like residual guilt or shame because now you're thinking you could have done more. Or maybe you were the weird kid. And you're thinking like, oh, I don't want my child to go through the same thing that like I went through. Like, how can I unweird them?
Yes.
All of those things. Finding it's funny because I see a lot of parents and like the Facebook mom groups and things like that are trying to find friends for their children
Mm.
that are similar to them. And they'll list out very specific characteristics and things that they're into, and they want to schedule play dates. And I love that, parents are actively trying to find, you know, a friend network for their children. And I think parents can, you can, there's other ways to go about that. I'm like starting to like, I can feel, I'm very self-aware, you guys. I can feel myself trying to get pulled back into the past and thinking about like little Sierra and all of these things. So I'm trying to like, I need to reset for a second and like be a little bit more present to the question. Okay.
I think you answered,
Okay, great.
I think what your answer was amazing. Like, I mean, again, like, I think what you just illuminated there is like parent, like taking perspective and stepping, like you said, like we've talked about this one time, stepping away from what your perceptions are of your kid
Mm-hmm.
or of the kids, like, you know, whether you're a teacher or a parent, right? Like, and giving them a label and trying to step away from the label and seeing them more as like just purely who they are. You're not a weird kid.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're an innovator.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're unique. Maybe you're like bringing things forward. Like, how can I build that up instead of like dampening it, right? And
Yeah.
like really stepping away from like perceptions and being more objective. Like, I think that's what my advice to people is like, learn to be more objective in your observations, and less colored by your own like
Use
perceptions.
positive intent.
Yeah.
Like our brains are programmed to stigmatize, our brains are programmed to judge because we're programmed to categorize so that we can identify threats in our environment. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
So recognize that it's happening, separate yourself from that, and try and view it objectively.
Yeah, exactly. That was perfect.
What, your turn. For the kiddos that, you know, haven't been diagnosed yet or are diagnosed and they're really struggling, they have needs, they have supports, and they're not getting it. So make sure, what do we say? That they're getting guidance and not chained.
I think again, I think really everything comes back to like noticing how your internal experiences is about to affect what your actions are. Like, are you letting this categorization of autism or ADHD or depression or anxiety like color everything that you're doing, right? Like, there's like so much stress involved with like an autism diagnosis or an ADHD diagnosis or like anything that is like different or divergent. But like my like advice is like to realize that like we live in a diverse world, and like unfortunately the world hasn't necessarily caught up to providing all of the supports that like we all need to exist as a society, like as a whole, right? And that even though the world tells you there's this one idea of what what's the word I'm looking for, neurotypical looks like, it's not true. And it doesn't really matter what neurotypical is. It just matters what like your child's presentation is.
Yeah.
And you just need to focus on what your child needs to thrive and not try to force them to be like anybody else. Like, just support them in finding the tools that your child benefits from so that they can learn the skills that they need so that they can live a valued life for them and not for other people, right? There are certain skills that we need to learn so that we can be a part of a community and we can interact with people and all that stuff. But like, there's a different style for everybody. Like, when I think about, like, it's just personality differences, it's just communication differences. Like, I might meet somebody who I don't know if they're neurodivergent or they're neurotypical, and we just don't get along because we don't speak the same. Like, it doesn't mean like they do something correctly and I do something wrong. We're just different, you know? And so focus on what the skills that your child needs for their life to thrive so that they can build like the necessary skills, but they can also like be like have fun and enjoy life. And don't focus on trying to make them into your idea of what typical should be, or
I think
force them into a box.
To bring it full circle from the very beginning of this conversation to now, we were trying to find our own place and we couldn't. So we made our own. Similarly, parents and children, sometimes you're going to try and search and find a place for your kids, and you really just might need to create one.
Yeah. Be advocates. Don't give up. Like, maybe learn to step out of like the status quo, be creative, be unique, and maybe you can learn something from your child that like does things differently, you know? Like maybe that's a signal for you to try things differently too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that is the end. Oh my gosh, I love this. This is like, I can't wait for the next
This is a
one.
good one. We got some good snippets in here today.
All the good stuff, all the goodies.
Hey.
Again, if you guys weren't able to participate in the live, feel free to watch it back on either of our pages or on YouTube. I hope everyone has a good one. If you have questions, if you resonate with the things that we talked about, if you want to do a live with us next time, let us know.
All right. Sierra, have a great rest of
You
the day. Bye.
too. Have fun in Seattle.